Hello, everyone. I hope we are having an awesome day. It's been a little crazy around the house today already, um, but that seems to be normal on a Saturday. uh, yeah, after yesterday at work, I need a quiet day. So I am happy to be able to spend some time in my sewing room. I see that I actually really am broadcasting, and I see a couple people in the chat already. We have my friend Steven of Bland Designs and the Idiot Quilter. You had a really awesome So Chatty yesterday. I loved all of the embroidery stuff that you started talking about. It makes me want to get back to my embroidery machine, which has been collecting a little bit of dust. So if you are intending for me to start using it, you're starting to succeed. Good morning, Judy, who is also from Georgia. Good morning, Karen, and good morning, Charlotte and Jacqueline. It's about to be a rainy day here, and after I leave here, I need to go to my local quilt shop for two reasons. Reason number one is they called me the other day and said that I had ordered some fabric, and it's in. And I don't remember ordering fabric. So I want to know what they said that I ordered. And number two, as I was cutting for the, don't want to show that one, the Matters of the Heart sew along, I miscut my ballerina pink. And either I'm going to have to call Fort Worth Fabric Studio and say, hey, I need to buy a quarter yard of something you may or may not have in stock, because they don't have it listed as in stock on their website. Or I'm hoping that my local quilt shop, in all of their giant Singles Awareness Day stuff that they have, has some of this pink. And if not, I'm going to have to hunt on the internet, because I just need a quarter yard of it. One miscut, which I miscut twice, and I was hoping that I might be able to kind of salvage it, but if what I suspect is going to be happening, which I really don't know, I'm still a little short, so it is what it is. We've had a couple other people pop in. Good morning, Katie Crafts and Jackie DBD. Bonita and Colleen. Steven says that the embroidery series is going to be happening for the next couple weeks. I'm excited about it. I bought my machine just over 4 years ago, and I've done a few things on it. I've started a few freestanding lace things, but with the whole pandemic thing, and at first I was set up an office in here, and I was hoping to have my embroidery machine running and doing stuff, but it's a little loud, and I could not concentrate on my work and listen to the embroidery machine at the same time. So yeah, and then I had a few thread tangles, thread breaks, or it wasn't catching the bobbin. All things that I know are just user errors, so I'm not really concerned about any of it, except for the fact that I need to start playing with it more. And because it's 4 years old, I need to get it serviced before I start playing with it again. So that is on my list of things to start looking at in Q1, is getting my machines serviced, because they are all due, one at a time. Good morning, Shelly from Florida. Let's try that again. Good morning, Shelly from Florida. That's the words. So I am working on week 1 of the Matters of the Heart quilt along from Fort Worth Fabric Studio. It's a free sew along. You can either buy a kit from them, or you can sew from your stash. They have a Facebook group, and I've already seen a whole bunch of folks sewing from their stash, and their blocks look awesome. My friend Stephanie of Quilting with Stephanie Stitches is doing the tutorials on Mondays. So if you need more of a real tutorial, she can give you more information. I should have paid more attention to her cutting instructions video to realize that I should have cut things in a different order. What I did wrong is because one of the cuts is 8.5, so I had two rulers next to each other, and I did math wrong. And I kind of goofed, and I was like, oh well. And I'm hoping that I was able to recover from it, but like I said, as I started doing more and more math, if I cut in a different order, I probably would have been able to recover from it, but because I didn't, I can't. It is what it is. Like I said, I hope that the shop has it, and if they do, yay. If they don't, I'm calling Fort Worth Fabric Studio on Monday saying, help! I've heard they got really great customer service if you do an oopsie and stuff, and I'm like, I'm just willing to, pay for a quarter yard, pay that whatever $5 shipping that it probably should be. I think they have free shipping going on for the near future, but if they're going to try to give me free shipping, I'm going to order more, because I am not basically paying for a quarter yard and try to get free shipping out of that. That's just ridiculous in my opinion. So I have already started sewing this morning because Stephanie said that this is a pretty long week. We are doing 4 blocks that are heart shapes. And like just to show, there's the heart. And there's 4 of them. Apparently I have to go through 64 2.5-inch squares to snowball the tops of the hearts. So yeah, I kind of started. So I've got some of, it might help if I just showed one. I've got one of the snowballs already on for the top, and technically we're snowballing all 4 corners, even though the bottom corners are pseudo flying geese. I just got to make sure I do everything correctly. I'm sorry, I was reading ahead and something didn't look right for a second. It's because I read too far ahead and didn't rewind. So I'm going to switch to the sewing setup because everybody seems to love this view. I'm going to take the instructions out of view because even though it's a free pattern, I'm not at privilege to give you the pattern. I do have a link in the description to the pattern, so you can go download them from yourself for free. But yeah, it's a PDF. The cutting instructions were pretty easy. It took me about an hour or so to cut everything last night, and that's including my miscut, and then me trying to figure out how to recover from the miscut and all that. So yeah, if you got the fabric, it's quick cutting instructions, and then it's a 4-week program, and this is week 1. Week 4 is usually putting it together, so I don't know if it's like last one where we got to block and put it together, or if we're just doing 3 sets of blocks and putting those together. I don't know, but anyway, I'm working on snowballing these, so I've got a handful of them already sewn. I've got a handful of them I got a handful sewn and trimmed, a handful just sewn, and then I've got my pile of snowball squares that we're going to start with. Hoping to at least get 1 block done today. At least on the live, I should say. The rest of it, Stephanie said I think it took her about 2.5 hours to do everything. And This doesn't look exactly like that, but it's right. Let me make sure. Yes. Oh, I'm still tired. I was expecting the overlap to be just that 1/4 inch overlap, and I think that's what it suggests in the pattern. But it's a bit more than a 1/4 inch overlap. So, what is everybody working on today? Since we have a handful of folks in here. Says I have about 27 of you watching. Thank you very much for watching. I'm using basically a combination of my laser light and the diagonal seam tape in order to line these things up without having to do the sew a line. Not sew a line, draw a line. Oh, I really need to wake up. We had a bit of craziness at work with a project where the developers were arguing with me on how I should test things. And I said, I need to test this the way that I feel it needs to be tested because I know the system in and out. You just came in on this. And after arguing and arguing, I finally got some of the information that I needed, only to find out they built it wrong. And it was that final test that I needed to do that they argued that I didn't need to do that showed that they missed something in their code. To which I said, you told me you were going to, you argued with me about my testing stuff. This is why you don't argue with me. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Lorraine from Massachusetts. Are you from Western Mass or Eastern Mass or Central Mass? Because I used to live in Eastern Mass and my family lives in Western Mass. Bonita is going to a sewing and quilt expo in Phoenix today. Ooh. I miss my Thanksgiving visits to Phoenix. A friend of mine used to live there, and I went out there for Thanksgiving for like 4 or 5 years in a row. And yeah, it was great being able to wear shorts, although lately it's been shorts weather here for Thanksgiving. But we love going antiquing at the Brass Armadillo. So that was always a lot of fun. Lorraine is in Billerica, so that's Eastern Mass if my geography is remembering. I used to live in Waltham. Went to college there. And it's always funny when people are like, well, did you go to this college? And I just like, seriously, you think I went to that one? Because there's 2 colleges in Waltham. The good one and the eh. Good morning, Jeannie. one more of these. Just so I don't have to do extra work to do a thread stop. I love chain piecing because they're their own leaders and enders. And then I can just pop these off. I'll move my 2.5s over here. I started enough for basically 2 blocks. And there's 4, so basically I started half of them. But 64 2.5-inch squares is a lot to think about at one time. So doing them in chunks, I think, is going to be a little better. And these are the other halves. "20 miles in Eastern Mass can be, you know, quick, or it can be an all-day trip." When I was still in college in Waltham, I tried to date this guy who was in Salem. And, you know, Waltham, Salem, not that far apart. But because neither of us had vehicles at the time, just because Boston, it was a 2.5-hour trip usually between us, because I had to take the shuttle from campus to Harvard Square and then get on the T from Harvard to North Station, then get on a different bus from North Station to Salem. And if things did not line up, it was horrible. Charlotte just finished about 200 flying geese. That's a pretty large flock. Good morning, Melissa. Let's see if I can get these pressed. One day I'll get a pressing camera. I don't know why it would be that exciting, but it would work. Just a couple weeks in Waltham. Although I realized there's not much to do there in Waltham. Charlotte has flying geese mastered. If you think you have them mastered, Charlotte, you should be looking at triangulations, because they have what they call tamed geese, which is their foundation paper piecing of flying geese. And they have different things where you can do them one at a time, or where you can basically sew a line of them, or they even have the staggered lines, if I remember correctly, of the patterns. Which you're probably thinking, that would have been nice a little while ago if that's the way that your patterns are done. Rosemary is moving to Springfield later this year. My sister's family and where I used to live is a couple towns north of Springfield. Because my favorite story to say is Ted Geisel, also known as Dr. Seuss, is from Springfield. And his illustrator for a lot of his books is from Holyoke, Massachusetts, that next town up. And legend has it, the illustrator was getting inspiration for his for Mount Crumpet in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I'm sorry, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He got his inspiration for Mount Crumpet from Mount Tom, which is the mountain that separates Holyoke and East Hampton, Massachusetts. And when you get down the mountain into East Hampton, there's like the whole center town and everything. So that kind of makes East Hampton, Massachusetts, Whoville, which means my family lives in Whoville. I used to live in Whoville. It's a lot of fun. The cops end up going to arrest the Grinch every year, so he can't steal Christmas. Ingrid, yes, I did go to Bentley, class of '99. Ooh, Charlotte has triangulations on its way to her. Good. And yes, it was college still back in '99. I joked that I want a new diploma now that it's university, but there's apparently a cost with it, and I can't get the same president to sign my OG that assigned my original diploma. There's a few really good quilt shops in Western Mass, Rosemary, just so that you know. Over in Chicopee, not far from the Chick-fil-A, is a cute little shop called Bayberry Quilts. They are a lot of fun. Love them two pieces. I have spent many a dollar in that shop. Their big thing is they sell kits that include the backing, which is really awesome. Except the fact that the way that they do the backing is, the way that they sell the backing is in the method that they like to finish, where they do a double fold over to do the binding. So if you go and purchase a quilt kit from them, I kind of recommend buying extra fabric for the binding if you want to use their fabric for backing. But they are just wonderful people there. And then up in Northampton is a shop called Valley Fabrics. And they have a large selection of fabrics, and I spent like 2 hours in there once just browsing fabrics. And I purchased one of their block of the months that I really want to get started on at some point. And if you know anybody into yarn crafts, right next to Valley Fabrics is a shop called Webs, which is, well, yarn. I brought Mom there several times while she was still around. And her complaint was that the yarn was so expensive. But she loved what ended up coming out of the products with those yarns because it's a little better quality yarn. That's not going to work how I want it to. Yes, it will. What I'm doing now is my OCD. And I'll show you in 1 second, once I get this next one pressed, why I'm doing this. So what I did is I pressed the other... Oh, you can't see me. Sewing. So what I did is I pressed the other seam. So the first seam I pressed going the direction that the instructions say. The other seam, I pressed it the way that the directions said at first, and then now I'm pressing it the other direction. I'm thinking I should have pressed that first one the other direction, just so that it would nest properly. But what I'm going to do is now, when these two get put together and right sides together, which is not at this step right now, as you see, these seams will nest, making it a little bit easier to put together instead of having that bulky seam. That's just something that my OCD likes to do. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do, especially since it doesn't look like any of these seams are lining up with each other in the pattern. So this way I can get them to go how I want them to. I'm also going to end up doing the same thing with the bottom half, but that's a little bit later once I can get more of these done. Moldy Lasagna, good morning. First time catching one of my lives. Where have you been? Oh, wait, it doesn't matter. Oh, catching lives is always so much fun. Charlotte used to live in Chester. I don't know where Chester is. I didn't grow up in Massachusetts, so I never really took the Massachusetts geography stuff. So I have no idea if it's not one of the giant normal place. I don't want to say normal. One of the giant cities that is on 90. I don't know where most of everything is. Kelly's Quilts and Cruises is claiming to be a little bit late because she had to shower. That's no excuse. You are not late. You are just fashionably on time. And it's very rainy, Fraser Valley of BC. Rosemary is taking notes on the quilt shops. Yeah, those are the only ones that I know of. We took a field trip down to, I want to say it was New London, Connecticut, maybe. And there was another shop there, but that was an hour drive. So we're like, no. Also in Springfield, there's this fabric shop called Osgood's, which is basically a clearance house. So I went there a few years back and bought a metric ton of Venertex fabric for next to nothing. I think it was like $6 or $7 a yard. This was like 5 or 6 years ago, but it was dirt cheap. So you might, if you need just basically fabrics, it was called Osgoods. I don't know where in Springfield it was. Could have been West Springfield. Charlotte says that Webs and Valley fabrics are awesome. I'm glad somebody agrees with me. My sister ordered a lot of stuff from. All right, no, let me rephrase that. My sister picked out a lot of stuff from Valley Fabrics for her table runners. So she really liked it. I think that was the first quilt shop that I dragged her to. Okay, let me get these pressed. And I think Webs is technically yarn.com, if I remember correctly. Jeannie asks how I like my new iron. I haven't used it yet. My goal is to get this area organized so I can set up my new iron over here and start using it. But until it gets reorganized, it's staying put. Chester is close to Springfield. I will take your word for it because, like I said, I'm bad with geography. It's kind of funny. I grew up in South Carolina. I don't know much of South Carolina geography because it wasn't really stressed upon us. And then I moved to Massachusetts, and basically we didn't go too far out of the Pioneer Valley. And even then, we didn't really go too far out of just the couple towns that we lived in. So I have no idea where a lot of everything is. And then I moved to Georgia, and people are like, well, I live in such and such. I'm like, that tells me absolutely nothing. So I now have 3 states that I've lived in that I basically know very little geography on. Google Maps, though, I can use Google Maps to get somewhere. Okay, I'm going to have these. So according to my instructions, let me grab my pieces. These really awesome, I need 8 of these. Six, 7. Okay, here's 8 of those. I have all of my pieces for today just sitting in this little container. Trying to organize some. And the instructions say they go on to the bottom, but they sew this direction. I don't know how important it is for which direction it is. Just make sure that they're consistent, because you could always spin the hearts the opposite direction if you did them backwards to the pattern. Kelly says people who are bad at geography, Google Maps. That is so true. And I too get east and west confused quite often. And it's worse since I used to live in Boston, because basically everything was west from there. So it was either you were going into town or out of town. So when you were getting on the interstate, you knew which way you were going. And just when I thought that I was getting my east and west good, and I knew I was heading south, so usually the first exit, if you're heading in the opposite direction, goes west if you're heading southbound, and the second exit goes east, except for the exit here by me, where it's the first exit that goes east when you're heading south, and the second, because it does a big giant loop around, and then the second exit just goes under and heads westbound. So one day I was driving, this was before GPS's, and we were heading to, I think we were heading to lunch or dinner, and I'm going and going, I'm like, how did I turn this wrong direction? Isn't the first exit supposed to be going west? And my friend goes, well, I was wondering the same thing, because the sign over there said this direction for where we were going, and you just completely ignored it. I was like, but like in my head, I had west and east going. I had the perfect compass. So yeah, I'm just like, okay, GPS, take me where I need to go now. I even use my GPS to get home from work, but not for the reasons why you're thinking. I know how to get home from work. The reason why I use the GPS to get home from work is to figure out what traffic is going to be looking like. When I'm heading out of the office, I always know that I have to take a right, because either I'm going to take a right and a couple more rights to get back to the interstate, or I am going to take a right and I'm going to continue up and then go a different way to the interstate a couple exits further up from there. And that all just really depends on what the traffic is. So the GPS is going to tell me what traffic shenanigans are happening. So I will, when I get into the parking deck, I will turn on the GPS. It'll have no idea what anything is because it's in the middle of the parking deck. As soon as it gets the satellite signal, it says, okay, turn right, which is what I expected. And then at that point, I will know if I'm going to be turning the first right to get to the interstate, like in the Midtown area, or if I'm going to be taking the next exit up. And because Georgia law says you can't touch your phone while you are driving, even if you are at a stoplight, the GPS stays on basically until I get home. Melissa needs to get caught up on on the project too. It's a fun project already. You missed it earlier, Melissa. I'm going to have to potentially call Fort Worth Fabric Studio because I miscut. That is, if my local quilt shop doesn't have any of this beautiful, disgusting pink fabric. I'm not a Valentine's Day person. Kelly finds it a problem when she goes somewhere new, hard to orient. I agree. When I first moved here to Georgia, I had a paper book map. And my plan to hopefully try to learn the areas of Atlanta was start driving somewhere, and then after I've decided I'm done exploring, pop out the map, figure out where I am to get home. Until the time that I ended up getting too far out of my Metro Atlanta map, and where I was did not exist. And then having to find somebody to say, okay, how do I get back to 285? Because if I got to 285, I knew how to get home. And since I was outside of Atlanta proper, basically, I would have to say, how do I get to 285? Okay, I'm not going to deal with popping another one on. Judy, the big chicken, is like 3 miles from where I live. It's always fun when I have friends or family visiting from out of state, and I'm like, "Hey, look, uh, you want to go see the big chicken?" And they're like, "The big chicken?" And I'm like, "Yes, the big chicken." And I will drag them to the big chicken, and they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's awesome." It's also cockeyed. Yes, Melissa. Normally I get Oops fabric. Well, okay. Normally I end up kidding myself so that I'm like I get it a little bit extra. When I do that, I don't have any messing cut issues. But I think it's because I start cutting, the night before the quilts along. So I'm rushing just a little bit. And the rushing is what gets me every single time. And maybe it's just my flaw with some of these Fort Worth Fabric Studio patterns, because I had cutting issues with Light It Up, where I cut something backwards. It was my fault. My fault. I'm all of my cutting issues are my fault, not part of the designer. But it's hilarious that, and it just could be, I'm stressing out about it. It's the night before, and you should not be cutting under rush. And it was just me. I didn't recount my numbers right before I did. Melissa says she's not a Valentine's Day person either. I call it Singles Awareness Day, or SAD for short, because it makes people painfully aware that they're single when their coworkers end up getting flowers and stuff delivered to the office. Although, hopefully this year nobody's getting flowers delivered to the office because we don't have our own cubes anymore, or desks, or offices. Oh, look, I got ahead of myself. I didn't do anything wrong, I just went too far. Or I didn't divide by 4 properly. Because only half of all of the uh, half of these blocks need to have a snowball down here. And I did it to all of my blocks that I had pre-cut or sewn. And because I've only sewn about half of them, did I do math again wrong? Either way, I'm fine. I'm just blaming it being tired. So that just means these have to get put together so I can start piecing them as half hearts. Since this is going to be the left side, and I only need 4 of them for the left side. So I'll put the others in my little container. And I need 4 for the right side, so I don't even have to go through all of those. Let's see. Kelly's son's birthday is the 13th, so thankfully you didn't plan it on, or he waited, or didn't get popped out on the same day. Breakfast time. We'll see you later, Kelly. Enjoy breakfast. Maybe I just haven't had enough caffeine this morning. I did get a printer. Because I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago that my printer died. Not those glasses, these glasses. Don't know how it's died. It just died sometime between Christmas and Stephanie and Shannon's retreat. So I couldn't print out Shannon's pattern because we didn't get it until the night before. If we had the pattern, the Thursday before, I could have printed it out in the office. But whatever. She taught it so well that I'm going to be able to do her pattern from her instruction memory. I took a few notes. I apologize for that. I will call that person back. He knows that I'm live right now. So yeah, I was basically researching all-in-one printers for a while. And let me grab 4 of these. I was looking, and I was like, I like this, I like this. I was undecided. And a friend of mine pointed me out to just a printer. and it had duplexing on it, which is one of the requirements that I had, because when I print out patterns and stuff, I want to print it out on as few sheets of paper as possible, save the environment. But it also had an additional paper tray, so I can put my newsprint to print my foundation paper stuff in one tray, and then I can put the regular paper that I print on in the other tray, instead of having to fiddle with that multi-purpose feeder where I would be feeding all of the newsprint. So just sitting it in all over was just crazy. So I ended up ordering the printer when I knew that because I need paper printouts for certain patterns. And since I knew I was going to do this so long, I didn't want to have to sit and memorize the pattern for the live, because we see how well trying to memorize a pattern has done for me so far. So instead of doing that, I said, well, I need to get a printer. I did print the first week out at work because I needed it, but I also have some foundation papers that I want to print as well, and I can't bring newsprint to the office and try to feed it into their system. So I ordered it, I think I ordered it Monday, and it was a Friday delivery, and I was like, great, I'm working from home on Friday. And it was kind of amusing because yesterday, right about the time that I was planning on logging off of work, I got the notice from Amazon that my printer was 9 stops away. And if you've ever used the Amazon app and tracked your stuff, 9 stops away usually means about 15 minutes, with as quickly as they do their stops and as close as their stops are to each other. So I looked at the map, and the car was all the way up in Kennesaw. And I was like, okay, do I sit and try to wait around for the printer so it doesn't have to be sitting outside? It's been soggy. Or do I run and get Riley real quick and hope that I beat Amazon home? I decided I was going to go pick up Riley. So I get to daycare, and they're 7 stops away. So they only made it 2 stops in the 20 minutes it took me to get to daycare. So I then said, okay, I'm rushing home. When I got home, they were 3 stops away, but they were still up in Kennesaw. So I just basically sat and watched the little truck icon on the app drive down to the area. When I saw that they were actually heading over here, I put Riley in her crate so that she didn't go crazy. I opened up the storm door in the front and said, okay, I'm going to get this all ready to bring in. They showed up with a big giant truck, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And let me tell you, this box is ginormous. I did not recall or pay attention, because I had thought that I had read that it was a 64-pound printer, and I was like, that's not too bad, but the sticker on it said it was 96 pounds. The box barely fit through the doorway. So Yeah, I've got to figure out how to get that upstairs and get my old printer out before I print. So that's part of the weekend plans, hopefully. Okay, so for each of these blocks, I'm not going to trim the backing over here yet. But for each block, I need 2 and 2. There are 2 different light prints that they're doing. So 2 of them are going to be with circles. And then 2 of them are going to be with these X's and O's, which I'm going to look at in a second because they're directional. And these get sewn this way. And again, because I'm using diagonal seam tape, it works as long as the fabric doesn't shift. And I don't know where my seam ripper went. It's only 2 or 3 stitches. Don't do this at home. Meaning don't goof it up so that you don't have to do this. Okay, take 2. Okay. I'm going to put the slightly eaten up portion out in the cutoff area. Okay. There we go. Diagonal seam tape means I don't have to mark it, which saves me a few seconds. Triangulations means I also don't have to mark it, so it saves me a lot of time. Okay, so I want these I do not think I want it to look like that. Okay. I'm just looking at the end result. That's not right. That's not right. Okay, so one of them is going to go like this, which means I want the other. Let me sew this one. Wait, let me make sure I have it looking right. And then the other is going to look like this. So they're The directions are going to go the same. So I have them placed properly. This is only because of my OCD with directional. If you don't care about directional, you don't have to worry. I know my friend Stephanie is slightly OCD about directional, and when she was doing the tutorial, she didn't say anything about it, which I'm kind of glad that she didn't, because it would have bugged probably some people. But as I saw her doing it, I was like, but. And then when I saw the end result, I was like, okay, she planned that up. Okay, now that I have all 4 of these done, now I can start trimming these and getting the block put together. Oh, and it's raining pretty good now. Which almost makes me not want to go to the quilt shop. But I got to figure out what fabric they claim I ordered. There is another Russ who goes there apparently. So maybe it was him that ordered. Although if it's good fabric, I'm taking it. No. I am not that rude to take somebody else's fabric. So do we have anything exciting happening this afternoon? I know there's a whole bunch of lives happening today. Mom and Pop has a 6-hour live happening today. I think it just started. They are always a lot of fun to go watch on their lives. And then I saw tonight at 5, Stephanie is doing Red Pandas from Art East. She bought a kit. And I'm pretty sure she started cutting it before the New Year's retreat because she had to go buy an extra piece of fabric. it's time for me to change my blade because that's now twice that it didn't cut properly. We'll see if I remember to change my blade. I also ordered the Red Panda kit, but I haven't started cutting it yet, so I have no plans of starting that right now. Okay. How did I'm losing it. Okay, let me quickly flip these seams so they nest. And as you see, we are going to have a little heart. Which I have a Besties quilt kit that I had ordered. Tula Pink Besties. And it's doing hearts, but the entire focal print is in the center, so I haven't looked to see how that heart comes out. Melissa has a Red Panda kit, but not in the Tula Pink fabrics. It's still going to be an awesome product. I do like how they have started kitting in Tula Pink. Mostly because I like Tula Pink, but it gives me more inspiration to try to kit other patterns in her fabrics. Okay. Now that we have the pieces for one block, let me switch footsies to my 1/4 inch foot. And then it's a whole bunch of straight sewing right now. So I'm going to line up my nesty things. And then I flipped these bottoms on the opposite corners too, so they nest. And we will do this 4 times. Good morning, Karen. I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Colleen is working on the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland using Tula Pink. Oh, fun. The Art East one, I'm assuming? Because I've been watching Sean do that one, the Art East Alice in Wonderland. No, not Alice in Art East Alice. Yeah, Art East Alice in Wonderland. He just did the Mad Hatter block, and that got colored awesomely using Tula fabric. Then again, we all know that Tula recently did have that Curiouser and Curiouser line. So it doesn't surprise me that it works, that her color palette works well with an Alice in Wonderland thing. This is now surprising me less and less that it took Stephanie 2.5 hours to do. Because she sews really fast compared to the average person. So if it took her 2.5 hours, I was like, oh, it's going to take me about 3.5. It's going to end up taking me probably closer to 4. But it's a gorgeous block, or set of blocks. Oh, the faux feather star. I did that quilt 3 years ago in blues. The pattern PDF has it in reds, or at least did 3 years ago. But I was in a quilt shop and I saw some really awesome Christmas winter blues. So I bought the materials and I ended up making it, looks like a giant snowflake. And I love it to pieces. I hang it up every winter in my house. There is one of the heart pieces done. Melissa says if it took her 2.5 hours, it'll take Melissa 5. Stephanie's a speed demon with her sewing machine. It's incredible that she's able to sew that fast and be that accurate. Karen is doing a purple feathered star. Ooh. Now I'm questioning, do I want to make another? The year that I made the feathered star, I made that, and Stephanie was also releasing a wall hanging. I forget what the wall hanging was called. But I made the feathered star for me, and then I made 3 wall hangings that year. The 3 of Stephanie's patterns for wall hangings, because we do a neighborhood progressive dinner every year, and I hosted appetizers that year. My next door neighbor hosted main course, and across the street hosted dessert. So people couldn't complain that it was too far to go between house to house to house to house. And let me make sure this is right from my perspective. Yes. But then I'm going to have to remember to rotate this every single block. Because reasons. So I ended up making a wall hanging for all 3 of the houses doing it. So with me hosting appetizers, there really wasn't a big hullabaloo about seeing quilted wall hanging or anything in the house. But we went to next door for the main dish, and they had their wall hanging halfway down the hallway, so nobody really saw it. But when we got to across the street for desserts, somebody made a comment of, "Hey, wasn't that hanging in Russ's house?" And I said, "No, mine was hanging in Russ's house. This is theirs, and next door to me had one too, except it was hanging down halfway in their hallway." So that was just kind of exciting to be able to share a project with neighbors, and we all had a theme in the during the progressive dinner. Melissa went to Joann's to get SF 101 and found 5 clearance batiks. Ooh. Which means you're going to remake Shannon's pattern. I really like the addition that Stephen did to Shannon's pattern to make it basically a lap size quilt. Okay. So I want to press this one this way because that's less bulk. Fabric tells you which way it wants to be pressed sometimes. And then this way. And we have one more seam for 1/4 of this week. I love how simple the Fort Worth Fabric Studio patterns are. And I love how they end up turning out. Let me trim this. Lining up the center seam. And go to town. That's a little bulky section. And then once I cross that center seam, I always just line up the next section because I don't pin. I should, but it's just too much work. I paused for a second there because I was looking at the seams. Oh, that's going to be fine. I was just looking to see how things were nesting on the back with the way that I did the other folding. Charlotte just printed the faux feather star as a future project. It took me about a day to do. That was cutting to piecing. I can't remember if I ended up using triangulations. I know I didn't use the flying geese for the triangulations, but I can't remember if I used triangulations for the half square triangles. but it went together, like I said, fairly quickly. I can't remember if she had a tutorial when it first came out, but I know that Fat Quarter Shop recently did either a tutorial or an updated tutorial. And I didn't watch the updated tutorial or the new tutorial. So here is my block. The hearts are going in the correct direction, in my opinion. I just have to make sure that I follow this for the rest of the pieces. And the seams are pressed, like I said, nesty for me in order to make sure that things fit as well as I like. So I know I ran a few minutes over my noon usual end, but that's because I forgot how to do math. It's fine. Like I said earlier, we have a whole bunch of folks who are going live today and tomorrow. Mom and Pop Quilt Shop are live, I believe, now. So please go hop over and watch them. They are wonderful. I don't know what they're doing on their 6-hour live, but that'll probably be what's going to be on my TV when I get back from the quilt shop, at least until 5 o'clock when Stephanie of Quilting with Stephanie Stitches goes live. Her project today is Red Pandas from Artie's Quilt Company. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, I need to get it cut first, but I've got other projects ahead of that right now. Tomorrow morning, Sean, the guy who sews, has his weekly podcast that gets published at 9 a.m. And then tomorrow at 11, Shannon of Slay Arts does her weekly Sunday brunch. She mentioned what was happening on her Sunday brunch during her weekly vlog, but I can't remember what it is. Like I said, yesterday was a really long day. So I'm going to be over there watching her, whatever excitement she does, tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. My friend Steven of Land Designs of the Idiot Quilter. He and Walter go live at 4 p.m. and just start talking about random stuff until we change the subject and get him on last week's sports ball. There's a lot of other awesome stuff that is going on during the week. There's going to be a ton of videos put out. I know Monday morning at 10 a.m. Stephanie is going to be putting out the piecing instructions for week 2 of Matters of the Heart. So we will find out Monday morning at 9 a.m. what the next set of instructions is. Hopefully, like I said, I will have a chance to get all the rest of these put together. We'll find out tomorrow evening when my weekly vlog comes out. But yeah, make sure you just check out all of the awesome YouTube folks, because we do a lot of this because we enjoy interacting with you, so interact with everybody. I'm going to go and head to the local quilt shop and return that phone call that came in an hour ago, who was supposed to know that I was already on the live. And I will see y'all later. Bye.